Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we examine the chilling and inexplicable disappearance of Kyron Horman, a 7-year-old boy who vanished from a Portland school on a Friday morning in 2010.
Okay, let's get right into this story. It's one of those cases that I think really sticks with you. We're looking at something that even now, 15 years later, just seems to defy any kind of easy explanation.
It really does, because when you think about a missing child case, your mind immediately goes to an abduction from a park or, walking home from school alone, something out in the open but isolated.
Exactly. But the Kyron Horman case is so fundamentally different, and honestly, that's what makes it so much more disturbing. This wasn't a deserted street. This was Skyline Elementary School in Portland, Oregon, on a Friday morning. During a science fair. He was busy. The school was filled with parents, teachers, other kids. It's the last place on earth you'd expect a child to just evaporate. And that's what's so haunting about it, that snapshot of total ordinary normalcy right before the chaos.
You have this image of Kyron. He was 7 years old, brown hair, blue eyes, wore glasses, and that morning he had on a black CSI t-shirt.
Which is just an incredibly poignant detail, isn't it? His interest in forensic science, and that his own disappearance becomes this massive forensic puzzle for the state of Oregon.
The last known photograph of her was taken by his stepmother, Terry Horman, at about 8:15 in the morning. He's standing there, so proud, in front of his science project. It was about red-eyed tree frogs.
And that photo, that smiling photo, is the final confirmed moment of his life before the timeline just completely shatters. After that picture, he basically ceases to exist in any verifiable, documented way.
And it's not like he was hard to identify. He had a really distinct V-shaped strawberry birthmark right on his forehead.
Right.
He wasn't an anonymous face in a crowd. So that brings us to the massive, unsettling question at the heart of this entire thing. Yeah, how does a child in a populated school, a place literally designed for safety and structure, disappear without a single person seeing him leave? No confirmed exit, no witnesses. It created this investigative vacuum right in the middle of a crowd.
It's a scenario that was, frankly, unprecedented for the region. The disappearance of Kyron Richard Horman on June 4, 2010, it sparked what became one of Oregon's largest criminal investigations ever. You had the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, the MCSO, working with the FBI, a massive joint effort.
And the result today?
Exactly the same as it was on day one. Nobody has ever been found, no physical crime scene was ever identified, and most critically, no charges have ever been filed against anyone.
And that's the core of the mystery, isn't it? The contrast between this huge all-out mobilization of resources and the complete frustrating lack of any physical resolution. So as we walk through the material today, we're going to really explore the intricate and deeply conflicting timelines that were provided by the adults closest to him.
The narratives just don't line up.
Not at all. And we'll examine why, even with what a lot of people consider to be overwhelming circumstantial evidence against one central figure, the case is still officially unsolved. All because of that critical, defining absence of forensic proof.
It's a textbook example, really, of what prosecutors call a no-body homicide investigation.
Yeah.
You might have a very well-developed theory, you might even have a motive, but if you don't have that physical evidence, that body, it creates this incredible investigative stalemate.
So let's get into the structure of that morning. We need to dissect the critical timeline of June 4, 2010. And for you, listening, understanding these details is crucial because pretty much every single minute after 8:45 a.m. is contested ground.
Right, so we know the basics. Kyron, a second grader, is dropped off at Skyline Elementary by his stepmother, Terry Horman,
to attend the science fair, which was happening before classes officially started.
Correct. And we have that last photo taken at 8:15 a.m. But the key moment, the one that her entire alibi hinges on, is the last claimed sighting. Terry Horman stated that she last saw Kyron walking down the hall toward a second grade classroom, right as the school bell rang at 8:45 a.m. And then she says she left the school.
But right after that moment, that 8.45 claim, cracks start to show up everywhere, not just in the family story, but in the school's own procedures. And those procedural failures, well, they made everything so much worse.
That's precisely where the critical timeline begins. At 10 a.m., so an hour and 15 minutes later, Kyron's homeroom teacher sees he's not in class. She does what she's supposed to do. She marks him absent on the school roster.
But she doesn't call home.
She doesn't call. And that single action or inaction was later so heavily criticized. He had opened up this massive 7-hour window where Kyron was officially missing, but no one in his family and no one in law enforcement even knew it yet.
If that call had been made at 10 a.m., the entire investigation would look different. The search would have started immediately.
Drastically different. They would have been looking for a boy who had been missing for just over an hour, not a boy who had been gone all day.
So you have this huge gap in time from 8:45 a.m. when Tara says she last saw him all the way until 3:30 in the afternoon. That's when the alarm is finally raised.
And it's raised in the most ordinary way. Kyron's father, Kyron Horman, and Terry went to meet the school bus at the scheduled 3:30 p.m. stop. And Kyron just wasn't on it.
That must have been a moment of just sheer panic.
I can't imagine. They called the school secretary who checked the records and told them he was marked absent today. That's when they realized the severity of it. The 911 call was placed at about 3:45 p.m.
And that call kicked off what is still the largest search and rescue operation and criminal investigation in the history of Oregon.
The scale was monumental. You had hundreds of volunteers showing up alongside trained professionals, the MCSO, the FBI, search and rescue teams from all over the Pacific Northwest. And they all converged on this one area around Skyline Elementary.
And the terrain there is a really important part of the story. It's not a simple suburban neighborhood.
Not at all. Skyline Elementary is in the West Hills of Portland. It's an area known for its incredibly dense forests, steep ravines, and it's very close to major waterways. You've got the Willamette River, the Columbia River, and this huge, sparsely populated landmass called Sauvie Island. It's a searcher's nightmare.
So they pour all these resources in. I read somewhere it was something like 40,000 man-hours.
That's right. And the cost was around $1.9 million over the years. This wasn't a casual search. This is a grid-by-grid methodical sweep. The authorities were clearly confident that if Kyron had wandered off and succumbed to the elements, they would find him there.
Which leads us to the single most chilling fact of this whole case. After all of that, all those hours, all that money, all that expertise, they found absolutely nothing.
Nothing. No physical evidence. No body. No scrap of a CSI t-shirt. No glasses. Not a single sign of a struggle. The complete failure to find anything in such a massive search is probably the biggest anomaly in the entire investigation.
It's like a ghost vanished. It almost suggests that he was never there to be found in the first place.
It implies one of two things. Either he was taken very far away from that area very quickly after 8:45 a.m., or the place where the event happened wasn't near the school at all. The lack of evidence in the search area is, in a way, evidence itself. It told investigators that whoever was responsible for this was efficient and very, very good at covering their tracks.
And this is where the story takes a very sharp turn, because the investigation's focus shifted. And it shifted fast. It went from a general missing person case to a deep, intense focus on the one person who claimed to be the last to see him, Terry Horman.
Her alibi for that day, specifically for that 7-hour window between 8:45 a.m. and 3:30 p.m., became the primary battleground of the entire case.
Okay, so we have to walk through this alibi piece by piece because every single detail matters. This is where the whole circumstantial case against her really begins.
Right, so investigators needed to account for every single minute of her day. The first part, interestingly, is verifiable.
This is the part with the receipts, correct?
That's right. She told police that between 8:45 a.m. after she left the school and 10:10 a.m. she was just running normal errands. She went to 2 different Fred Meyer grocery stores, and she had the receipts to prove it. So that establishes her alibi for the first hour and 25 minutes. She was where she said she was.
Which is so important because it means the police have a solid, verified timeline for her up to 10:10 in the morning. But then we hit the abyss, that next chunk of time, from 10:10 a.m. until almost noon.
This is the critical 89-minute window. This is where her alibi completely breaks down. It becomes entirely reliant on her word alone. From 10 a.m. until 11:39 a.m., Terry claims she was driving on rural roads in the West Hills, the same heavily wooded area the searchers were scouring.
And what was her reason for doing this?
Her explanation was that she was trying to soothe her infant daughter, Kiara, who was with her. She said Kiara had an earache and was fussy, and that driving her around on bumpy roads helped her calm down.
Which, on the surface, is a totally plausible activity for a parent of a young child. I mean, it's something people do.
It's completely plausible. But in the context of a missing child investigation, Investigators had to treat that time as a window of opportunity. And the problem was they could not independently verify her location.
Why not? What about her cell phone?
Her cell phone did ping a tower, but that's the issue with rural areas. That one tower covered a huge, sprawling area. The radius included the general roads she said she was on, but it also covered a wide swath of land all the way over to Sauvie Island. So the ping proved she was in the general vicinity, but it couldn't tell them if she was on a specific road or parked down a remote service lane or near the river.
So that 89-minute gap, that hour and a half, it just hangs there. A perfect unaccounted for window in the perfect location to dispose of evidence. It's a huge piece of circumstantial suspicion.
A massive piece. And the rest of her day was, again, partially verified. She claims she went to a 24-hour fitness gym from 11:39 a.m. to 12:40 p.m. Then she said she got home around 1:01 p.m. and almost bizarrely posted the photos she'd taken of Kyron at the science fair onto Facebook. So you have this timeline with these verified bookends, but a giant unverified black hole right in the middle.
But the problems with her story aren't just about that time gap. The contradictions go right back to the very beginning, to that moment she claimed she last saw Kyron at 8:45, walking down the hall.
And this is maybe the single most damning contradiction of the whole case. Kyron's biological mother, Desiree Young, has consistently and publicly stated that Taryn's entire story about that last sighting is a lie.
A lie based on what?
Based on what investigators apparently told her. Desiree claims that at least 4 different people, 2 of Kyron's friends and their parents, saw something completely different. They saw Terry Horman leading Kyron out of the school back towards her red pickup truck and leaving the school grounds with him that morning.
Wait, if that's true, that changes everything.
It changes everything. It means Kyron never went toward his classroom. It means he never even started his school day. It would mean Terry's official story was a complete fabrication from the very first minute.
And it shifts the case from child goes missing from school to child is deliberately removed from school by his stepmother.
A huge distinction. But for a prosecutor, you have a major hurdle. Even with 4 witnesses, if you have no body and no forensic evidence, it's still their word against hers. It creates powerful suspicion. But proving a crime beyond a reasonable doubt is another story.
This moves us into the territory of alleged premeditation and a potential cover-up. This is where the story gets explosive, and it explains why law enforcement zeroed in on Terry Horman so completely. They started using other tools to apply pressure. Let's talk about the polygraphs.
The polygraphs were very significant for the direction of the investigation, even if they aren't admissible in a trial. Terry Horman failed 2 separate polygraph examinations about Kyron's disappearance. And when they asked her to take a third, she flatly refused.
And for comparison, what about the rest of the family?
For context, the source material is clear that the other key family members, including Kyron Horman and Desiree Young, they all took and reportedly passed their polygraphs.
So we should be clear for everyone listening, polygraph results can't be used in court as proof of guilt. So why do investigators rely on them so heavily?
They're a tactical tool. First, a failed test is a huge red flag to the police. It tells them the person is very likely being deceptive, and it gives them leverage in an interrogation room. Second, and maybe more importantly, it helps them focus their investigation. If she shows deception when asked, "Did you leave Kyron at school?" it tells them to pour resources into disproving that specific part of her story. The 2 failed tests basically sent up a flare to the FBI and MCSO that her narrative was likely untrue.
And the suspicion from those failed polygraphs was then just massively amplified. It was amplified by the shocking murder-for-hire allegations that came out just a month into the investigation.
This was a bombshell. Investigators learned that several months before Kyron disappeared, back in early 2010, Perry had allegedly approached her landscaper, a man named Rodolfo Sanchez. She allegedly offered him what he described as a lot of money to kill her husband, Kyron's father, Kyron Horman.
And this is what completely destroyed the family unit. The police had to inform Kyron about this. Imagine being told that your wife, who is at the center of your son's disappearance investigation, had previously tried to have you killed.
Kyron's reaction was immediate. He moved out of the family home that day, taking their baby daughter, Kiara, with him. He filed for divorce, he got a restraining order, and he went on record saying he believed Terry was involved in what happened to Kyron.
Did the police try to get evidence of this murder plot?
They did. They had Rodolfo Sanchez cooperate. They wired him up and had him meet with Terry to try and get her to talk about the plot on tape. But the sources say the operation didn't get any usable evidence. She was either too cautious or never said anything explicitly incriminating on the recording, but the fact that they even ran a sting operation like that shows you how seriously they took the threat.
And it wasn't a one-time thing, was it? The source material mentions other plots.
This is what helps build a potential profile of calculation and planning. She was reportedly investigated for 3 separate murder-for-hire plots, 1 against an old ex-boyfriend and 2 against Kane. This alleged pattern, whether the plots happened or not, paints a very dark picture of someone capable of calculated violence to solve their problems.
And when you put that alleged capacity for violence next to the emotional state of the home, you start to see a potential motive forming. Kyron's mother, Desiree, claimed she found emails from Terry that showed a severe hatred for Kyron.
Yes, she claimed Tara blamed Kyron for her marital problems with Kane. That in Tara's mind, Kyron was an obstacle, a source of friction in the marriage. When you have that kind of documented resentment, it provides a powerful, if circumstantial, motive.
And the circle of suspicion didn't stop with just Terry. It expanded to her close friend, Dede Speicher. What was her role in all this?
Dede Speicher came under intense scrutiny because, like Terry, she was also unaccounted for during a crucial period on June 4th. And more damningly, she admitted that she and Terry were communicating using disposable burner phones around the time Kyron went missing.
Burner phones, I mean, that just screams premeditation. You don't use burner phones to plan a trip to the grocery store.
Exactly. It suggests a conscious effort to have conversations that could not be traced by law enforcement. Investigators recovered those phones. And while Speicher has always denied any involvement, the use of those phones, combined with her own hazy alibi in that critical West Hills area, led to intense suspicion that she was, at the very least, an accessory after the fact.
So you have this mountain of circumstantial evidence just piling up. The failed polygraphs, the 89-minute gap, the witnesses at the school, the murder-for-hire plots, the burner phones. It led a judge in 2012 to officially refer to Terry Horman as a prime suspect, but still, no charges.
And that brings us right back to the central problem, the no-body homicide. Without a body, without a crime scene, without that one piece of forensic evidence that ties Terrio directly to a criminal act, all you have is a collection of very suspicious circumstances.
So let's talk about that legal standard. Why is it so incredibly hard to prosecute a case like this?
Well, the prosecution has to prove 2 things beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that a death actually occurred. Without a body, you have to convince a jury that there's no other possibility.
Right.
And second, you have to prove that the death was caused by a criminal act. You have to do all of that with nothing but circumstantial evidence.
And the defense can always argue, well, maybe he's still alive somewhere. Maybe he was abducted by a stranger and has amnesia. However unlikely that is, it introduces doubt.
It introduces reasonable doubt. That's all the defense team needs. Successful no-body prosecutions are rare. They usually require an ironclad circumstantial case, like a confession, or significant amounts of the victim's blood or DNA found in the suspect's car or home. The Kyron Horman case has none of those things.
So every major theory about what happened just runs headfirst into this brick wall of no evidence.
Every single one. The theory that he left school on his own, unlikely given the lack of any sightings and the huge search. The theory of an accidental death nearby, unlikely given the thoroughness of that same search. So you're left with the most prevalent theory, foul play by a familiar adult. But that theory rests entirely on circumstances that, while powerful, can't be proven in court without that physical link.
For a number of years, it really seemed as the official investigation had just stalled out. It became a cold case in all but name.
It entered a long lull. Public records show that the hours MCSO detectives spent on the case dwindled each year. By 2023, it was down to just a few hundred hours for the entire year. It was clearly an open file, but it wasn't an active investigation.
But that seems to have changed recently. There's a new push driven by the upcoming 15th anniversary in June of 2025.
That's right. The new Multnomah County District Attorney, Nathan Vasquez, and Sheriff Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell announced a new aggressive review of the entire case. This was heavily pushed for by Desiree Young, who wanted fresh eyes on it.
So what does an aggressive review of a 15-year-old case actually look like?
It's a massive undertaking. First, they are digitizing everything. We're talking about thousands upon thousands of pages of reports, photos, interview transcripts, and evidence logs. They're creating a single, searchable digital master file of the entire investigation.
Yeah.
They're leveraging technology that simply didn't exist in 2010.
What could they hope to find by doing that?
Connections that were missed. 15 years ago, analyzing cell phone data was much more basic. Now they can use advanced forensics to look for hidden metadata in photos or map cellular movements with far greater precision. They can run a keyword search for a name or a location across the entire file instantly, and maybe connect a random interview mention to a cell tower ping that no one noticed before.
And this huge digitization effort, it's not just for their own internal use.
Oh no, and this is the key part. Once the file is organized, it's being sent to the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, the BAU. They're bringing in the profilers for a completely fresh perspective on the case to see if they can offer new investigative recommendations.
How is the BAU's approach different from a local sheriff's office?
The BAU looks at the behavioral fingerprints of a crime. They're not just looking at the evidence, they're asking why. Why hasn't the body been found? Does the way the person vanished suggest a highly organized offender who knew the terrain, or someone who panicked? They'll analyze Terry Horman's statements and actions through a behavioral lens, looking for patterns of deception that might suggest a likely disposal area based on offender habits in similar cases.
It's a serious commitment. It shows they haven't given up.
It absolutely signals they're taking this seriously again. But DA Vasquez has been careful to manage expectations. He said the process is painstaking and won't be fast. We are literally watching them try to use 2025 technology to solve a 2010 mystery.
And through all of this, for 15 years, Kyron's family has had to live in this state of limbo. We have to talk about the advocacy of his mother, Desiree Young.
Her commitment has been just relentless. She's channeled all of that grief and uncertainty into action. She organizes vigils, runs fundraisers, and started the Kyron Horman Foundation to help other families of missing children. But the personal cost is just unimaginable. She said, "I just feel like we are frozen in time in 2010. It is hard to really move past that." That lack of an answer, she says, is earth-shattering. It prevents any sort of healing.
It's hard to even comprehend what being frozen in time for 15 years feels like, that constant state of hope and dread.
It's a unique form of psychological torture. The stages of grief can't begin because you don't know for sure if you have something to grieve. You're perpetually waiting for that one phone call, that one tip, that one discovery that will finally bring some kind of resolution, even if it's the worst possible news.
And Kyron's father, Kane, has also continued to speak out, urging people to stay vigilant, holding on to the hope that Kyron could still be found. They are both prepared for an answer, whatever that answer may be, and the $50,000 reward for information is still active.
It's a constant reminder that this case is far from closed in their eyes and in the eyes of the community.
So in the end, the schoolhouse vanishing of Kyron Horman is this perfect storm. You have incredibly high suspicion against one person based on a mountain of compelling circumstantial evidence, but it's all held in check by the complete and total lack of physical proof.
The new review is the best hope they have. The question is whether modern technology can finally bridge that gap between the circumstantial dots and a conclusion that can stand up in a court of law.
When you really think about it, what this case shows us is just how fragile everything is. The fragility of trust within a family, the fragility of safety even in a school, and it shows us how a single gap in a timeline, just 89 minutes of unaccounted for time, can be enough to sustain a mystery for an entire generation. We're all watching now, hoping that this new effort can finally find the truth that's been hidden, but hopefully not lost forever. Next time on Threads of Truth, we examine Claudia Kershaw, a German tourist who vanished during a dream vacation in Florida, leaving behind a car, a fiancé, and a trail of unanswered questions.